What's going on, FA Nation? Welcome to Fantasy Long DFS NBA live stream. James and I are here to bring you tonight's breakdown of the four-game DFS main slate. A little bit of baby for me. This is a GPP only slate, but we have some interesting lineup builds that we can bring. We're given the slate, some of the guys up here. The real question, whether or not, James, is do you pay up for Giannis or do you not pay up for Giannis? Because he's the only guy priced up as high as anybody, 12.6K over on DraftKings. I know FanDuel, he's a similar price tag as well. Are you playing Giannis tonight?
I mean, there's a lot of value on tonight's slate, and since I think it's logical that you can pay up for Giannis, and I also think if you don't want to pay up for Giannis and you find yourself with like $1,000 left over, a couple thousand, don't feel uncomfortable about it because of the amount of value and because of the lack of big names. So I think that's something important to keep in mind when you're doing your builds tonight. If you don't want to play Giannis and you have a lot of money left over and you like your build, roll with it. You don't need to spend every single dollar that you have. That is not necessary if you like your builds and you like, you followed your processes. So I think I like Giannis, but I think, there's other ways to go tonight as well.
No, I agree with you there. There's definitely, and as you mentioned, some value opening up, especially over with the Atlanta side. With Torian Prince ruled out. So Kevin Horger, is that how we're gonna go ahead and?
We'll go with that one.
We'll go with that one. $3,300 DraftKings, $3,600 on FanDuel. FanDuel, I think he's almost a must play because if he doesn't perform, they just cut his price anyways. But it's gonna give you that value you need to really pay up to get a guy like Giannis and probably some other guys in your line. He's 12.8K. John Wall's at 10.4. Lillard's at 10.1. So again, if you're gonna be paying up for guys, you're gonna want to find that value. He's just the key to unlocking some of that. Kind of with that said, though, James, why don't you run over some of the game totals again? It's only a 4-game slate, but I think we do have a few games here that are pretty high.
Yeah, we're at 232 in Atlanta, Charlotte, 227 Washington, Dallas, 221 Brooklyn, Phoenix. That's up 2 points, up a point and a half. And Milwaukee, Portland went up a point all the way up to 229. So literally every game is currently at 221 or higher. So this is a fun little slate with a lot of high totals, and there should be a lot of points. There are only one game in Atlanta, Charlotte is bigger than a 2-point spread. It's 11.5, and we still like guys for Atlanta in cash, believe it or not. So if you're gonna play cash games, of course. This should be a fun, entertaining slate with a lot of close action. I don't even necessarily think 11.5 is correct because Charlotte, unless Kemba Walker is doing Kemba Walker things, which he obviously can, I don't see a lot on their roster to be like, wow, they're going to completely blow Atlanta out. So, it could be 4 close games tonight.
I agree with you. I'm hoping this game stays close. Again, there's a lot of value, a lot of guys we're going to have exposure to in this one. But, James, before we break down the point guard position here, hit up the sponsor. New sponsor today, Prize Picks. Not enough time to play daily fantasy basketball today. Want it to be simple? Prize Picks has easy perfected. Simply select 2, 3, or 4 players, then decide if each player will be under or over their projected fantasy point totals. You control who you select. You control how much you play for. If you sign up for Fantasyland, you get a 200% instant deposit match and a free 2-pick entry with a chance of winning $25 cash. Free. So hurry up, go to fantasyalarm.com/picks and get in the game. That's fantasyalarm.com/picks. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports simplified.
I like it. Yeah, I like it. I mean, like they said, right off the bat, simple.
200%.
Yeah.
Instant deposit match. That's
unheard
of. Nice. That's
pretty
unheard
nice.
Of. It really is. That's a lot. It's a lot of free. We like free things. Let's jump right into the point guard position here. We mentioned the podcast that we think the point guard at the top is pretty deep. Obviously guys like Walker, Wall, and Lillard just kind of kicking it off. You like Lillard here in this matchup against Milwaukee. I was a little off him, but I think that's only because of how much I really like Kemba Walker in this matchup against Atlanta. But if we're going to pivot off Walker, tell me what you like about Lillard in this matchup.
I mean, we get a guy who is averaging over 28 points a game. We get a huge total. Both teams are – well, Milwaukee is playing really fast. They're playing at the 3rd highest pace in the league. And that's who the guys we want to target, guys on the opposing team to the team that's playing at that pace. So we get a massive pace up spot, which means more possessions for Portland, more shots for Lillard, essentially. So they're going to need him to score. 'Cause if Giannis is going to go, it could turn into like a bucket for bucket thing where they're just trading buckets all night. I love the usage, and the late night hammer exposure is always nice too. So I don't think he's a must play, but I mean, we don't have a ton of spend up options. And if you're going to pivot off Giannis, I think Lillard's the way to go because a lot of people are going to play Kemba. And I mean, you could play Lillard and Giannis in a lineup, and they can get you 140 points combined if Giannis goes for 80, and we hit their ceilings.
Ceilings.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like if they hit their ceilings, it's a pretty nice start. So I mean,
no, I definitely agree with you there. I think FanDuel, just because Walker is actually the cheapest of the group at point guard, he's just gonna be an absolute lock for me. On DraftKings, Walker's wedged in between Lillard and Wall. So if you're paying up as a tournament pivot, you go Lillard. If you're going to spend down and save some cash off Walker, John Wall here against Dallas. Luka Doncic is going to play today. He's got a 112 defensive rating. We always talk about matchups against Dennis Smith Jr. because he's at like 116. 112 is not really great either. So I think John Wall at his cost, another really good spot here, and you get to save a little money here off of Kemba Walker.
Yeah, I don't hate him. But I think where I am right now is like if I'm gonna go off Kemba or Lillard on DraftKings, I think because he gets multi-position eligible, and obviously I want to talk about him in shooting guard, but you could just use Devin Booker in the point guard spot for $600 less. Especially if you're trying to get Giannis into the lineup, you're gonna literally need every penny that you have to make that work. So I think Booker would be like my pivot off Wall. I'm not against him. I don't love him as much as I love Lillard and Walker, and I can pivot to Devin Booker on DraftKings as well.
Yep, that's true. Definitely an easy pivot there. And again, you mentioned Booker here against Brooklyn. If you look at sort of the DVP matchups, especially on DraftKings, they always have that little red or green or black number next to the names. The Nets have actually ranked number 1 against point guards and shooting guards this year in terms of limiting fantasy points. Do you think that could potentially impact Booker's ownership here? Or do you think people see Brooklyn, they see Devin Booker, and just think lock and load?
I mean, I'm one of the people that see Devin Booker and see Brooklyn and say lock and load. And then, when Isaiah Cannon's not on the floor and you have Devin Booker running as the primary ball handler, D'Angelo Russell is horrible defensively. So if they get matched up together, that could be a nightmare. Joe Harris is a decent defender, but he's not going to be able to contain Devin Booker athletically. And Karis LeVert, I don't think they would waste LeVert and potentially gas him out because they need him offensively. So I think we could just see Booker against Dinwiddie, but Booker against these guys, and he's going to destroy them. I don't buy that first against because I mentioned 116 defensive rating for Russell, and I think it was a minus 1.2 defensive box score plus minus. So if they get matched up together, he's going to destroy him.
Yeah, I agree with you there. A point guard you and I were both high on during the podcast when the Taurean Prince news was a little bit ambiguous at the time. But since it comes out and Prince is now ruled out, Trae Young is another guy that I'm just really, really interested in, especially in GPP formats. We looked it up with Taurean Prince off the floor this year. What was it? Young had a 36% usage rate and 1.46 fantasy points per minute. That's great for a guy that has already gone for some big total fantasy point production this season. This is a game where I think we're just going to see the 2 point guards, Kemba Walker and Trae Young, just go back and forth up and down the court against one another. How much do you like Trae Young? What's your exposure like of him tonight?
I love him. I think everyone else loves him too, which is fine. I don't think he's a bad play. I'm not going to, if I'm building 10 lineups, I'll probably play him in 4, maybe 5, maybe half the lineups. Also, because there are some nice cheap point guards on this slate that I think I like too. So, a lot of my lineups are going to have Lillard. A lot of them are going to have Walker.
Yep.
And a lot of them are going to have Giannis, right? So we're going to need to spend down on a couple lineups. So in a couple lineups, I think I'm going to pivot to guys like Spencer Dinwiddie and Isaiah Cannon and even Jeremy Lin in some over Trae Young.
Jeremy Lin over Trae Young. You just want to push that Jeremy Lin agenda. Why do you like Jeremy Lin so much? Just tell the audience.
I mean, okay, so I mentioned on the podcast, and when I pushed him earlier in the year, I think I missed the boat where he was being limited, but now he's not being limited. And we saw, other than the Miami game, 2 games in a row where he saw 20 plus minutes. He scored 23 actual points for Sacramento, and he scored 26 and 27 FanDuel points, respectively. This is a guy we've seen in the past that is productive as a scorer. I'm not saying he's a 20-point scorer, but he is a 15-point guy if he's given the minutes. And I think with Prince off the floor, they need scoring production. I don't think Huerter is like the guy that they need scoring. And even DeAndre Bembry and Omri Spellman, these guys aren't like score first players. Jeremy Lin is, which is why I think you could see him and Trae Young playing aside one another tonight for about 23 to 25 minutes. He's really cheap. 3.8K is not going to kill your lineup. So if you're playing one of those where, I prefer him on FanDuel, but if you're playing a lineup where, you have a solid foundation and then you have Lin 3.8K, he could be your throwaway guy. So it's just, it's a way to differentiate. He's going to be less than 10% owned. So 4-game slates, that's kind of, it's not everything, but it is important to differentiate yourself.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned Lin, a little bit cheaper than him is Isaiah Cannon. You mentioned, you think he's a guy that you're going to be having in your lineup tonight as well. Do you think that he is, someone we can expect a ceiling from here with, against Dinwiddie and D'Angelo Russell? I know you don't think highly of D. Russ's defense, so.
I guess I think it's more like I think he can get us to like 25. I know that's like pushing it to what he's done. He's done it like once this year, but I think he could get us there. He plays the minutes, and this game is with a high projected total, and the Suns are actually projected to stay close. So maybe he actually sees a couple more minutes, maybe 33, 34. So I think there is a little upside, and at 4.5K, if he gets us 25, it's 6X. So, I mean, I'm not going to complain about that.
Okay, yeah, I won't argue with you there. Moving on to shooting guard, we talked about Devin Booker, how much we, obviously think that he has the potential to be one of the highest scoring players on this slate. Someone that's much cheaper than him on DraftKings, actually $700 more expensive on FanDuel, is Bradley Beal. Again, we talked about Luka Doncic starting at point guard. Well, they put Dennis Smith Jr. at shooting guard more often than not. If you kind of look at the percentages of time spent at what position, DSJ, again, I mentioned, has the 116 defensive rating. Bradley Beal in a really crushed spot here, in my opinion. It's interesting to see the price discrepancies between the two. Right. So I definitely think he's a guy I'm looking at on DraftKings. FanDuel, maybe I can be convinced to go elsewhere, but again, really good matchup.
Yeah, if you're playing cash games, you lock Beal in on DraftKings, and I think you only play him in a GPP on FanDuel at that price tag. Like, he's such a lock at 7.4K on draft. I have a hard time ignoring him and the fact that Dennis Smith Jr. is playing all his time at shooting guard.
Right. I mean, exactly. The fact that matchup is going to exist tonight, I think, in this game,
right.
Is – and Beal's already like a high floor player, and a high ceiling player as well. Going for 45 fantasy points against the Knicks last game, he can go for 50 easily when he gets going. It's a two-man show really there in Washington. I'm a big Bradley Beal fan tonight. If we're going down a little bit, Caris LeVert's another guy you and I both talked about a lot this year. Against Phoenix, good spot here. How much exposure do you plan on having of him? How many lineups are you playing tonight? Again, four-game slate. Are you maxing out the 20 max like I tend to try to do? Like, how many lineups are you making tonight?
I've made about 10 on both sites, and I have about half of them have Caris LeVert. Primarily on DraftKings, I don't love the 8K price tag on FanDuel because I can get Devin Booker for $100 more. And I think LeVert probably has an equal floor to Booker. We know Caris LeVert and Joe Harris are the only two on Brooklyn that play 30 minutes. So we know the minutes are going to be there. The shot attempts, the production defensively is a huge boost for LeVert. But I'm $100 more for Booker, a guy who scored 70 actual points in a game. That's where like my mind keeps going, and I'm like, this guy can get me 100. I'm not saying he's going to, but like that creeps into my mind. So I have more exposure to Booker. I prefer LeVert over on DraftKings where he's only small forward eligible. But I love him as a whole tonight.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's going to be difficult to really argue with that logic. And both you and I are both big proponents of his really good spot. Another guy that seems to be always underpriced for me over on DraftKings is Chris Middleton. $7,000 there. Put up 23 fantasy points in 22 minutes against the Kings. Against Boston, he had 32 and 34. I mean, he's just kind of always going fantasy point per minute plus, averaging 35 DraftKings points on the year, averaging just under 34 over on FanDuel at $7,200. We think of Giannis, he does everything, but Middleton's the number 2 there. And this is a good spot for him. You talked a lot about how CJ McCollum's defense hasn't really been on par this year. Middleton seems to be a guy that goes overlooked. I think maybe even on a 4-game slate, there's a chance that you get him at good ownership.
Yeah, and I think what's going to depress his ownership the most is the fact that he really hasn't been playing well. If you look at his recent box score, yes, the Sacramento game was a blowout. He still shot 25% in that game. The game before, he shot 33%. The game before that, he shoots 36%. And we're still getting the peripherals out of him. He's still averaging 5 rebounds, 4 assists a game, which has always been his. And the steals as well, correct. So, I mean, if the scoring comes around, I think he's going to be lower owned than we're going to see him in most 4-game slates. And we want exposure to that hammer. I think he's a really nice play alongside Giannis tonight. I mean, I think basically Giannis, Lillard probably soak up all that ownership in that game, and then there's just a few pieces here, a few pieces there that go off, and I think Middleton's one of them. So I love that call on Middleton.
Ken Bazemore, we talk a lot about the value in this Atlanta game. We talked about Trae Young's usage rate and fantasy points per minute. Victorian Prince on the floor, off the floor rather. Well, Bazemore's number 2 in that category. Averages over a fantasy point per minute, averages like 26% usage rate. Good price tag for him, $6,400 FanDuel, $59 over on DraftKings. He fits in really nice in those mid-tier builds, and we know he's a pure GPP player, but we've seen his ceiling at times go up to 50 points already this year. Did that against Dallas, a couple 40-pointer games as well. So how much do you like Bazemore here? Again, 4-game slate, so a lot of these guys we're going to talk about are going to be in play. But what are the chances that you actually roster him tonight, given sort of your exposure to guys like Bembry, who we'll touch upon, Huerter, Young, etc.? I
mean, I know it pains you to bring him up, but like you mentioned, he has a ceiling, and we've seen it twice this year. It's 50. I think if people are worried about the minutes lately, you got to look deeper into things. There's been a lot of blowouts. Last game, yes, he didn't. He got pulled off the floor even in a win against Miami, but that's kind of an aberration. They're going to need him with Taurean Prince out. I like him for tournaments, as you said. Exposure-wise, I think it's fair you don't go overweight on him because I think he's going to be really popular tonight, and he's someone that can take you to the top of the leaderboard. As I punched my mic, he could take you to the top of the leaderboard, but he can sink your lineups as well, especially at 6K on DraftKings.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So I like him, but I'm gonna temper my expectations for I'm never go 100% on Kent Bazemore basically.
Yeah, no, well, definitely. Like I said, I have a whiteboard in my room, and for the longest time that was split in half of DFS players have done me right and DFS players have done me wrong. I labeled it good guys and bad guys, and at one point in time I erased out the bad guys and just wrote Kent Bazemore side because it's just how many times he screwed my lineups over. But again, can't have biases in DFS. That's not how you make money. Got to play the way that the projections and kind of matchups lead you. So this is a good spot for Bazemore to have some increased usage, increased scoring opportunities. Got to play him. We've talked about Kevin Huerter a little bit as a value punt play. I don't think we need to go deep dive into him. He shoots some threes. He had a 36 fantasy point game against Cleveland earlier this year where he grabbed 10 rebounds. So he contributes a little bit across the board. If he can hit a few more threes tonight, the upside will be there. He'll probably play, 25-ish minutes, 25 to 30 minutes is probably where we're going to see him tonight max. I think he's going to split a lot of time with Bembry. So those two probably splitting time is a way to go. What are there any other value shooting guards? You mentioned Malik Monk on the podcast this morning, and you talked about Malcolm Brogdon in subscriber chat. Of those two guys, who you like better? Which way are you going with more ownership?
So I think If you're playing a cash game, you play Brogdon. There's just a floor. There's not an upside, so I'd rather play him in a cash game. And I think Monk, there's a lot of upside because he can score the basketball at a really high rate and really fast. Like, he could just put numbers up quick. So I think I'd play Monk in a tournament and Brogdon in a cash game.
Totally fair. Totally fair. Another guy you've mentioned a couple of times is Austin Rivers. I'm not using him, but
I'm not.
You're off him now?
No. Yeah. I mean, I get it. He's cheap, but why not just pay the $300 more for Kevin Huerter or whatever price, however many more hundreds of dollars for Kevin Huerter, who's starting, who could play up to 30 minutes.
He's $200 cheaper on FanDuel. I assume he's probably similar on DraftKings.
$500 cheaper. Right? It's no
reason.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's jump to small forward. Yeah, we've already done the to Giannis or not to Giannis. That's really personal preference, lineup builds. I would make 2 lineups tonight. Even if you usually play 1 lineup, make 2 lineups tonight. Put 1 with Giannis in it. Put 1 without him. See which one, because you don't want to not have Giannis exposure and have him go for 90. Right. But I also understand that it's kind of difficult, and maybe you're not comfortable with all the players that you have to sort of put in those lineups to get him involved. So then, make another lineup, pivot without him, and just, see how it goes. Again, this is GPP night. This is a lottery ticket night, only 4 games. See which way you're going to go there. If we're not using Giannis, or even if you are on FanDuel, you can play 2 small forwards. It's a big dip in price. Nick Batum on FanDuel is the second highest price small forward. Obviously, on DraftKings, pretty much everybody we've already talked about is also small forward eligible. So again, Nick Batum here against Atlanta. What we both love about Batum is the fact that he doesn't need to score you 15 or 20 real points and go for 40. He's going to get you the rebounds, get you the assists, get you steals, the occasional block. So for me, cash game play. Again, not that I'm playing cash games on a 4-game slate, but if you're in a head-to-head, maybe this isn't a terrible head-to-head slate. You can fit Batum in your lineup. I think he's a lock for 30 or so fantasy points in this matchup.
Yep. Head-to-head, single entry, you'd kind of want to gear your lineups more safe than anything. So I like him if you're not playing cash games in both of those. And how about going down? You mentioned you love Trevor Ariza tonight. I think I like him more if TJ Warren sits, but I don't hate him either way. And then everyone's going to play DeAndre Bembry tonight, and I think a pivot off Bembry would be going to Evan Turner in that late night hammer.
Yeah, definitely like Turner. We talked a little bit if Stauskas doesn't play. They already don't have Harkless playing, so could be just a couple additional minutes there for Turner. And he's another guy that sort of fills up the stat sheet for you. So he's never going to light it up in terms of fantasy production. But if for whatever reason a couple more of his shots end up falling tonight, then the upside there is a little bit higher. I don't love Trevor Ariza. I just want to make sure that's out there. I just like him I like the potential we see here. I like him more on DraftKings where he's 49. I think it's $4,900. 49. 5,700 on FanDuel is a little bit too high for me.
Yeah.
At least he only needs 25 fantasy points on DraftKings to hit value. But again, we're looking at a guy that's gone over 30 fantasy points each of the last 3 games. 2 of those games included TJ Warren playing. It seems like Warren's going to play. So, yeah, they're probably going to cut into a little bit of each other's playing time. But, again, this is Brooklyn. So, in the past, this has always been a favorable game to sort of attack that front court. Ariza's still standing there shooting threes, but he's also getting more involved. This isn't totally the Ariza we saw in Houston where James Harden said, you sit here and don't move, unless, and if all 5 guys collapse in the lane, then maybe half the time I'll still kick it out to you. So I think there's still some upside value with Ariza there. I think Harrison Barnes is pretty safe if you want to go there as well. But yeah, like we talked about, it's going to start getting ugly for us. I mean, we already know what the power forward position looks like, and it's pretty gross. So yeah, I think another guy we can look at small forward, Joe Harris. You mentioned him on the podcast. The minutes are usually there for him, and he's a shooter. So if he gets hot against Phoenix, again, not a defending team, maybe he can hit value for you. Only $4,700 on FanDuel, $4,600 on DraftKings. So again, I think he's another guy that's going to go overlooked, sort of given the other names that are on this slate. And
every night. I think he just goes overlooked every night.
He does. Is he starting still? I forget.
Yep. Well, DeMarre Carroll's not back. I just want DeMarre Carroll to officially be ruled out just to, please, like, I know he's doubtful, but just rule him out already, please.
He's doubtful, yeah. No kidding. The rosters are going to lock, and all of a sudden he's going to start.
Right.
All right, let's just move on to the dreaded power forward position. It is not anything we want to look at here. Ersan Ilyasova is the highest priced power forward on FanDuel tonight.
Oof, that's scary.
Yeah, it's not ideal.
RHJ is going to be the chalk.
Yeah.
Let's just get that out of the way. He's definitely going to be the highest owned power forward on this slate.
I'm going to tend to agree with you. He's $4,800 on DraftKings. Finally played 30 minutes on Sunday against Philadelphia. Really, what we've been looking for is that 30-minute plateau from him. He's played 25. He's played 27. Hopefully, that wasn't a tease. We're not just buying in to the minutes on him, and he's going to drop down and play 20 again like he did against Houston out of nowhere. But, yeah, we know the upside's there. They need some front court help. He's a guy that can do a little bit of everything. Definitely going to be chalky as well. I still think Ilyasova is someone you can play. Again, I like them. We all saw the production he did when Giannis was out. Obviously, Giannis being back. But Ilyasova is still probably locked for around 25 minutes here against Portland. He's a shooter. He gets on the floor, he shoots, so potential upside there. Markieff Morris is back to sort of his original position of power forward with Dwight Howard back. He's going to dry Harrison Barnes. Again, he put up 38 fantasy points against the Knicks the other night, so there's still some upside value there. But again, power forward is ugly. I don't know how you're going to find two power forwards on FanDuel and be happy with it.
Yeah.
There's going to be questions, going forward. So yeah, it's a pretty ugly group. If anything, maybe this is where you punt. You're already playing Huerter, who's actually playing minutes tonight. Maybe you just punt one of the power forward spots or throw in Ed Davis and hope that he gets a double-double for you or something, or Dwight Powell, something like that. And try to, again, spend up for Giannis on FanDuel. Because, again, it's just pretty ugly here. Are there any other power forwards I'm maybe missing?
Yeah, I mean, I like Al-Farouq Aminu, pace-up spot. I think there's a spot for him here in this, 5 of the 8 games. He's reached double figures in rebounds. So if he can just contribute some points, we know he's good defensively. He can come up with steals. Giannis is averaging 5 turnovers a game. So maybe some of those slide to Aminu, and, FanDuel, we get 3 points. And I think Omri Spellman, who's going to start for a second straight game, he's seen 20-plus minutes in 4 straight games. I don't love him, but another cheap hawk that is going to kill our lineups or he's going to win us some money. I think he's going to probably be chalky because we know he's starting, and he's probably going to see blowout minutes regardless. So I think he could be okay, but after that, I'm just ready to move on to the center position.
That's fine. I'll throw my shout out to Zach Collins like I do every other everything. Maybe he can get it going again tonight. Cheap, $4,100 on FanDuel. All right, center position. Interesting spot here. You and I think everybody else is going to be in love with DeAndre Ayton.
Yep.
We both think Yusuf Nurkic can do some damage tonight if he actually gets some playing time. I guess I'll ask you right now, are you playing Jordan or Howard in their matchup?
So I would rather play Dwight Howard just because of price, and he's just the better offensive player. Yeah. So, just because of that, I would rather play Dwight. But, I'm not comfortable using him at this price tag either. I don't hate it, but, I don't feel it necessary to go down to him when you can spend up on Ayton, or you can go down below him and get Jared Allen, who is in a really good spot, who there's no reason he should get. He hasn't been in foul trouble a lot this year, which is something he was doing a lot of last year. So, I mean, he's only 2K on DraftKings. So, I mean, I don't think we need to do it, but it's definitely a contrarian approach. I don't know how much ownership Jordan at 8.6 on FanDuel or Dwight at 6.8 would get.
That's all I'm looking at. I don't know how much ownership DeAndre Jordan's having tonight. So, probably, again, especially at that cost you have to pay up, it's going to be pretty difficult. You and I have gone back and forth and definitely discussed this a lot. Alex Leonard, Dwayne Dedmon tonight, they're $100 apart on FanDuel. I think $300 apart on DraftKings. Both now pretty much splitting time at center. They both block shots. They both can grab some rebounds. They both sort of score in the low 10 to 15 points. So they're like the same player. I don't know where to go in this matchup here against Charlotte. My instinct is just to take the cheaper player in Dedmon. He was sort of always the starter for them, until he injured himself, and Len kind of slid in there. Maybe it's just personal preference. Like if you have the lineup builds and you like one player over the other, use them. If you need salary relief, go Deadman. Like, how do you decide between these two, or are you sort of just stuck in the middle like I am?
I'm kind of stuck in the middle, and I just want to put this out there for any first-time listeners. We have mentioned, yes, 10 Hawks tonight have come out of our mouth. We do not root for that team. I just want to make that clear because we have literally mentioned their whole roster by now.
Vince Carter, just in case.
Alex Poitras. Okay, now we've officially mentioned their whole roster. I think you go Denman on DraftKings, and I think it's a toss-up on FanDuel. I think Len can stay out of foul trouble here, and if he does stay out of foul trouble, he's someone that can put up a double-double. And one more name, just for late-night exposure, Brook Lopez. We've seen him play more minutes against a traditional center this year. Every time there's been a traditional center, less athletic, he's been able to stay on the floor. And I think if he, Nurkic can't get out to guard him on the three-point line. So I think there's a path to Brook Lopez being decent tonight if you want to spend down at center.
That's fine. I think Cody Zeller seems relatively safe as well.
Right.
Not exciting. He's about as plain vanilla as a player as you will find. But he just always manages to get 22 fantasy points. Like something around there. So again, if you're looking to be safe at center, spend down, sure. Ayton's probably, the head-to-head single entry cash game, 50-50 player. Obviously, there's GPP upside in there too, but I think Nurkic is the GPP play, pivot off of him. If you're going to go that way, again, he doesn't need the minutes to go for 30 or 40, as we've seen. So again, if you can fit him in your builds, I think this is a spot have always loved attacking, Milwaukee bigs. They just don't rebound, and then they went out and signed maybe the worst rebounding 7-footer in NBA history in Brook Lopez. So again, it's going to be interesting to see the cat and mouse game they play there. Lopez is going to try to draw him out to the perimeter. Nurkic is going to try to do his best to stay in the paint. That's kind of where we're going there. 2 minutes past 6:30 though, James. So let's wrap this up. You and I will be in subscriber chat leading up to roster lock. If any sort of injury news breaks, obviously we'll have it for you guys. Example lineups are being released as soon as this podcast ends. Starting 5 videos out, playbooks out. Get your questions in. You can tweet at us. You see our Twitter handles below. But James, what's your Twitter handle?
@the_real_grande.
You can find me on Twitter @jmpema777. Thanks to Steve Pimentel for producing this. We'll hit you guys up.
Later, guys.